So I'm Dan Mazzella. Thank you for coming to the orange stage, which is rather funny because the company I'm with, Arcadis, our logo is an orange fire salamander. So what are we going to be talking about today as my slides load? So first of all, I am Dan Mazzella. That's M-A-Z-Z-E-L-L-A. Don't confuse it with one Z or one L. That's Mazzella. Don't trust that guy. I'm Dan Mazzella. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been in the software industry for lots of years. The gray in my beard and the gray on the Pierce Brosnan guy up there. He doesn't lie. I've been around for a while. Started in the startup world in the late 1990s with a company called Tririga that was then bought by IBM. I stayed there for a good number of years, and now I'm with Arcadis. And on the side, I play jazz saxophone. So I'm used to being on the stage, usually with a big bari sax. I'm also on the board of directors of the Las Vegas Youth Orchestra, and we are able to provide music to the young, talented musicians in Las Vegas. Okay, so what is Arcadis? The orange stage, very fitting for Arcadis because that is our company's colors. So we were founded in 1888, so the opposite end of the startup spectrum. We've been around for nearly 140 years. We have 36,000 employees worldwide. I deal with people all the way from Manila through India, Romania, Netherlands, UK, Spain, Brazil, and all of North America. There's not a time zone that I don't think I cover. We are a firm that's really focused on building and improving the natural and built environment. So what does this mean? We do high-speed rail projects. We do water reclamation projects. We do lead remediation projects for those communities in the back east part of the US that have lead pipes that need remediation. Building the high-speed rail in the UK, the high-speed rail in the Netherlands, and large-scale projects in the Middle East and throughout Asia. Platinum medal was awarded to us last year by Equivalis and in sustainability ratings, and we have over $5 billion in revenue. So what is a civil engineering company doing here? Well, we're going to talk about what does it take to run agile software development in the realm of ISO and SOC environment. But before we get to that, one critical thing about being a civil engineering firm is our commitment to health and safety. So every presentation we do, we always have a small health and safety moment. And in the context of civil and environmental engineering, when dealing with software, we always try to make our software test-driven with test-driven development. So that's the key. So there are real-world consequences if we have a piece of software that goes out and designs, there's a design for a bridge that's wrong, or a building that may collapse because it's not stress tested correctly, or some railway disaster happens. There's also financial implications if we don't get our software correct. So our health and safety moment is to really recognize that test-driven development within the software industry is key to preventing some of these items. So that is to say, writing your unit tests first, to think about, especially in the MVC sort of framework, of having the front end talk to a control layer, talk to your data storage layer, is thinking about that in terms of contracts and what does your JSON look like from one end to the other? What does your storage look like, and how can you mock and think about breaking apart and having your development done from a test first, and then you write the actual code that's deployed into production. So that's our health and safety moment, is always thinking about test-driven development first, regardless of what you happen to be doing, whether it's civil engineering or game design. It will always help. Okay, so let's talk about doing a quiz. It's after lunch. Everyone is sort of tired and whatnot. So get out your phones, scan the QR code, and we have the first question is, what year was Arcadis founded? Was it 1789, 1888, 1988, or 2008? And as we have the responses come in, no one answered. I think I was a little bit quick to the draw. I'm going to give another couple seconds here. I'll give 15 seconds back on the clock. All right, 100% of people paying attention. Thank you for not falling asleep during after lunch, getting very sleepy. So let's move on. So let's understand the landscape. What does it mean to operate under SOC or ISO frameworks? What does the impact does that have to software development? What impact does it have to us in the software and environmental engineering world? Well, the purpose of the ISO and SOC audits is to make sure that we are aligning with international quality standards for software management, for software building practices, and in those other areas. So we make sure that we are following along a set of rules, process, procedures, and documentation, and we don't stray from those. And this has impacts in finance, of course, in the civil and in environmental engineering realms, so that we can ensure that any piece of software that we write follows all the precise standards, and so that the people that are actually putting their stamp, if they're a professional engineer, putting the stamp on the blueprints, putting a stamp on the models, they're sure that the quality of software that they have, they can rely upon that. So at Arcadis, we have both a financial and engineering accountability to our customers. So we have to make sure that we are working within this realm. Okay, another quiz. Everyone get ready again. Hopefully you can get your phones out again. There will be about 4 or 5 of these left, so let's get ready. So what do you think a key challenge is faced by software teams when trying to maintain that agility in those compliance-driven environments? Do you want to always adhere to those strict coding standards? You want to manage stakeholder expectations? You want to ensure that there's cybersecurity measures in place? Or do you want to balance speed and quality? Which one of these is a key challenge that these teams are faced? Let's go move on to the answer. And so a lot of you say that balancing speed and quality, that is the correct answer. So obviously the others are important, but when it comes to the context of talking about auditability and working within the ISO and SOC frameworks, you want to balance that speed and the quality along with making sure you're doing everything right, making sure that you're crossing the T's and dotting the I's, as we would say, and you are following along the process and making sure the documents are up to date as you are doing your process. Okay, so we have a leaderboard. So we got 2 out of 2 for Asmir. Thank you very much. So what are our main strategies for compliance? So we have discipline, and this isn't like a discipline where we're taking a stick and beating people over the head. This means more discipline as in control, as in you are following along and following the rules. And the rules are based in the documentation. So making sure that you have something like a wiki or a system of record where you can go to and refer to say, this is what our process is for this particular scenario. And then lastly, you have the data. So this is your DevOps tools. We happen to use Azure DevOps. There could be Jira. There's a number of other systems that you use to collect the information for your own process. So in the Agile world, we're dealing with stories, we're dealing with features, we're dealing with epics, making sure that all the scope of a project or a product is laid out before you, not necessarily expecting it to be done in a waterfall manner, still keeping to a 2-week sprint cycle, but making sure you're having your information set up in your systems that you can follow along and trace the life cycle of something that comes from an idea through execution into production, and having the discipline to follow that through the entire change management process. So let's talk a little bit about the change management process. So some things that work for us is continuous planning, thinking about what is on the roadmap. What is it that we want to accomplish at different time horizons? What do we want to accomplish during this sprint, during this 2-week cycle? What do we want to accomplish over this next three-month quarter? What do we want to accomplish over the next year? And what's our 5-year plan? So thinking about that continuous planning, and then having an iterative approach. If you see that your sprints are going really sideways and you're not getting the velocity that you expect, take a step back, refocus, say, okay, well, we're going to not necessarily throw out the plan, but think about how we can adapt the plan so that it is delivered and we make good progress into the future. We also want to bring in different stakeholders, have a collaborative approach so that the people in the business, our customers, and our developers are all sharing the same thoughts in terms of what is it that we want to deliver. What are the things that we want to deliver on that short-term basis? What are the stories that we want to accomplish? And making sure that we have that all documented and can refer to that at any point in time so that everyone is, again, on that same page. And this comes with the added benefits, especially if you're using some of the modern Jira or Azure DevOps sort of tools, of having automated compliance checks within there to make sure that someone isn't coming in to your Azure DevOps and setting a story to complete when it's really either the developers or the product owner's responsibility to do that. To make sure that if someone is pushing code up in GitHub, that the PRs are done correctly and the merges are done correctly, and having the automated checks that go along with that, call out any discrepancies in the software development lifecycle model that you have, making sure that those are called out to you, so if there's any compliance issues, you're notified early and correct that either through education or other means to have the code delivered correctly. And then lastly, thinking about infrastructure as code as well. So we're not talking about just the software, but what about the servers and services that supply the software? So having something like Terraform, Ansible, Docker, things like that to deliver the code, making sure that your developers or your DevOps people aren't actually logging into production and pushing code directly from Git or whatnot. You have it completely automated, you have your GitHub Actions in place, you have your pipelines in place, and you have a big red button that someone can press to say, hey, I'm ready to push this code into production, and it's all automated. So making sure your infrastructure is set up so that you can deploy code from Git directly is another key thing that people often forget. So what are some lessons learned that we've come up with in Arcadis? So number one is having cross-functional teams. What does that mean in terms of a civil and environmental engineering firm? Meaning we bring in people from the business. So we have our civil engineers, our mechanical engineers, our cost managers, our product managers, and our project managers, all sitting in the Scrum teams, being able to give us feedback to say this particular story doesn't quite sit right with the way that Arcadis is actually doing business, and then improving the story quality as time goes on. Having transparent docs, so having a wiki that not just the development team can see, but the entire business can see, so that we're all on the same page with what needs to happen, so that when someone says, okay, give me an estimate for when this is going to be complete, when they get a 6-month estimate, they're not going to blow up and get very mad because we are all on the same page about what process we have to follow because it's in our wiki. We also have continuous training, something that we use Pluralsight and Udemy and other things to train not just how to do software engineering, but also how to do the Agile process correctly and how to do product ownership correctly, and making sure everyone is on the same page so that we know what roles and responsibilities are there in the teams. We also go through a series of pre-audit audits and reviews after an audit is done to see what went sideways, what went bad, what can we do better, what can we document better. This enables us to really fly through the audits and show that we are very prepared. The auditors come in, they're often quite impressed with how we have things laid out. We can show them the wiki. They say, okay, well, according to our software development lifecycle process, you have these stories. Let's see a random story. We can go into Azure DevOps, pick out story 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, see it, and show that the steps that Azure DevOps has captured in terms of when a story was created, when it was assigned to developer, when it went into testing, what the GitHub check-in was, the PRs were done correctly, and then the push to production were all done based on our documentation. The other thing that we found is we always have to train the auditor. So when a new auditor comes in, we inform them and we train them in our own software development onboarding process so that they are on the same page as everyone else on the rest of the team. We treat them as if they were a product owner or as if they were a software engineer, giving them the same sort of training when they come in to do our audit that everyone else on the team does. And that helps quite a bit so that we're not sitting there with them on long phone calls saying, okay, well, here's our wiki, go read through this and go pick through these things. Having them brought into the team as if they were a team member really improves that process as well. And the last thing is making sure that management stays close to tech. So that's not just management from a software development point of view, but also from a project and product management point of view, making sure they're understanding what is it we're doing in Azure, what is it we're doing in AWS, what is it we're doing with our C#, Java, whatever code, that everyone has that same understanding. Okay. Another slide, or another quiz. Let's get ready. So which of the following best reflects the approach to harmonizing that agility with SOC or ISO in software objects? Do we want to balance rapid development with maintaining compliance standards? Do you want to ignore audit requirements to prioritize speed? Do we want to selectively choose compliance frameworks that fit our current process? Or do we want to solely focus on the audit requirements and disregard any of the Agile practices? Hopefully this is an easy one for most people. So we will get the answers here in a second. So obviously we want to balance that rapid development while maintaining those compliance standards. There's not always a good answer for that. So what do I mean? So you want to balance it, and it's more often art than science. So you want to use your DevOps tools to your advantage in creative ways. You want to sort of gamify works. You know, we talk about story points and number of tasks that you can complete. Gamify that work. You know, make it a challenge. You know, give out candy bars or stickers or whatnot for the developers, the people that have gotten as close to the amount of work that they've said as possible at the beginning of the sprint that they've delivered at the end of the sprint. It's not necessarily about the quantity of work, but it's that ability to say, I'm going to do 12 story points of work in the next 2 weeks, and then delivering on that 12. If you've gone over and you've delivered 30 story points, well, your estimation isn't that good. You've way underestimated what you are capable of. Same thing goes for underestimating. If you say you're going to do 10 story points of work and you only deliver 2, well, then you may need to think about what are the different strategies to improve that quality of work. The next thing I often say is if you are in doubt, look at the wiki, and if it's not there, update the wiki. all of us at Arcadis have the power to update the wiki if we see something that is missing. So that's something that I will say quite often is update the wiki, update the wiki. Don't expect me as a manager to update for you. You, as a developer, as a product owner, as a scrum master, you all have the power to be able to update the wiki. And leading by example, once in a while I will go and update the wiki when it's something that is under my control. So you'll see plenty of pages up on our internal wikis that that I have personally written, and this way it shows that it's not just my responsibility, but it's all of our responsibility to do that. And being able to have that update wiki is something that we mandate throughout our organization. Okay, let's do another quiz. Get the phones out, get ready. All right, so what are some solutions that you could use for documentation? Do you want to use an ERP, enterprise resource planning tool? Do you want to use a wiki or a CMIS? You want to use something like Stack Overflow, or do you want to use Excel? You would be surprised how much Excel is used within the civil and environmental engineering world. There's a lot of exports to Excel that comes from our models. There's a lot of work that goes on Excel and then uploading. So hopefully none of you pick Excel for your wiki or CMIS work. Yeah, so having your documentation in Excel is not a good idea. You do want to use a proper wiki or content management information system. Azure DevOps has one built in. You can use one of the open source ones. You know, just get a Docker image of that and throw the data up in some blob storage or whatnot, and you'll be good to go. All right, one more quiz. We have leaderboard. All right, 4 out of 4, very good. All right, we have one more quiz coming up. So when I say documentation, this is documenting the reality and then making sure you follow it. So if you have a certain process, write it down in the wiki, and if you are starting to stray from that, don't be afraid to go back and change the docs, and then document that you've changed that as well. Our particular wiki that we use internally is based off of Git, so we have a record of every time someone makes a change, it's up there as a record in Git, and we can see the exact history of when a particular document was changed, who changed it, and why they changed it, because it's in Git history as well. So that's important to be able to be flexible and don't think that you need to choose a process and stay through it through the entire life cycle of a project or a product. All right, the other problem we have is dealing with resistance. So my little AI-generated resistors up there will tell you that it's best to deal with resistance head-on. Don't bury your head in the sand. Have that open communication with the people that are resistant to change. Encourage the feedback, and maybe by asking, the Toyota method of getting down to the root cause analysis of 5 whys, if you can encourage that feedback and then ask why are they not wanting to make this change, and then ask why they feel that way, and get down to that root cause, you'll often find that it's something that's missed in the process or something that is not correct in the process, or something that can be streamlined. So don't be afraid to get that feedback and understand what is happening. And then a lot of times it's just a matter of not having the proper training, not having the proper support when dealing with resistance. The other thing we use quite a bit is AI. So here's my AI slide, and what in the context for documentation and Agile and in the context of ISO and SOC audits, is how do you get started with documentation? Well, you can use large language models to say, give me an example software development lifecycle process. You use it as a muse. You use it to get started. Humans are very good at identifying what is wrong. So that old Soviet Russian proverb of trust but verify, it was not Ronald Reagan that said that. I think it was the Russians that said it first. So you want to trust that what you're getting from the large language model when you're creating documentation is correct, but you want to verify it, and you can always, always edit it if it's not correct. If you see something is not there and not correct, change it. But at least it will get you that start. It'll get you 80% there, and you can do that rest of the 20% on your own, or you can go back and have that chat with the AI, with a large language model, to get it to near perfect, and then change it over time as your process adopts new changes. All right, this is more of free form. So what concerns do you have about dealing with resistance? You can just put a word or two up there. I know that there's sometimes anger involved. There's sometimes egos that are involved. I hear a lot of people say, well, this is the way I've always done it. Ignorance, stubbornness, slow to change, absolutely. There's also cultural differences. Because Arcadis is a worldwide organization, there are cultural differences. People in one region may be very slow and hesitant to change, versus being an American, I want to change things very rapidly. I want to be always the latest and greatest. So having that communication with those other cultures is important as well. Getting out of your comfort zone, failing to implement, that's a good one. Yeah, you may come up with a good idea and then fail to implement it, either fail to enact it properly, or failure to have a good communication with everyone. All right, so what are our key takeaways? So number one is understand your own landscape. Understand what does it mean to operate in an agile way with all these audit requirements. Having practical agile strategies. You don't have to follow the Agile Manifesto to a T, but adapt it to your own organization. Learn how to overcome resistance, and learn how to have the tools available with your agile process so that you can get harmony with your compliance. And always understand that there's going to be trade-offs. Sometimes you won't be able to move as fast as you had initially wanted to, but if you have your documentation in place and you follow it, then you should be good. All right. Last quiz, I got 2 minutes left. So which of the following is a key strategy for promoting agility within compliance-driven projects? Do you want to completely ignore what I've been talking about for the last 25 minutes? Do you want to implement very rigid processes and ensure strict compliance? Do you want to avoid change management process to maintain agility? Or do you want to document what you do and then follow it? So couple more seconds left, and we will see if I was a successful speaker or not. And I am a success. Thank you very much. Document what you do and then follow it. That's the key takeaway. Don't be afraid to document. Don't be afraid to update the wiki. Don't be afraid to change your process if you see a better way of doing it. Attending conferences like this is key. Don't be afraid to make little tweaks or larger tweaks as you go along. All right, so leaderboard. All right, Terry Brown. Okay, last one, a little bit of a giveaway question here. So what are your key takeaways? Do you document and then follow it? Do you want to deal with resistance head on? Do you want to understand that blending is more of an art than a science? Do you want to foster and encourage open communication, or do you want to understand that there are always trade-offs? Maybe I should change that or to an and. All right, 3 more seconds. And there's a good mixture of people. Your key takeaways could have been any one of these. They're all correct. So congratulations to Terry Brown. I wish I had like a Lego or something to give you. I don't, but you have the admiration of the crowd here. So thank you very much, and hopefully you learned something, and I will be available off stage if you have any questions. Great, thank you very much.